All right, everybody, we are going to get into another session. Awesome. So to keep it moving, we have Erin coming back up to the stage to host Maya Pete for a conversation around best practices for social acquisition. So Maya originally was working with us while she was at Tube Science and has since joined the Jones Road Beauty team, and she is heading up their performance marketing efforts. So get ready for a good session, everyone.
Okay, guys, it is rainy. It is the end of the day. Thank you for sticking with us. This is our last session, and I could not be more excited about
it.
too. So kick us off. Tell us your journey. Tell us about what brought you here today. Give us an intro.
Totally. So I was working as a creative strategy lead at Tube Science. So if you remember Philip a little bit earlier, great guy, one of my first bosses. So really nice man. And we were having trouble getting enough creators in our content fast enough. And so one day we were looking through, myself and somebody from our talent team, we're looking at ways to get more creators, and we found Cohley, and we were like, okay, let's see what happens. Get this on here. But it wasn't, at the time, it wasn't necessarily for advertising advertisers. And so we were like trying to manipulate the briefs so that we could get a bunch of creators in. And then I joined Jones Road Beauty, and I was like, I'm gonna keep these good vibes going and move over here, take all the creator strategy with me, take the ability to create a lot of content. And that's how we got to this part of our partnership.
Yeah, so you're so right that like Cohley, originally when we started as a company, it was very much focused on like organic social. But we realized really quickly that, paid teams are even probably more than organic teams, just like in desperate need of content. Yeah. So talk me through like how you guys think about that. Like it's a spigot, like how do you get enough? Like how are you like working with creators to kind of like help that?
There's never enough.
Never enough, right?
There's never enough because everyone needs to see themselves reflected in the product, and everyone needs to see their skin. For Jones Road specifically, right? Everyone needs to see their skin tone reflected or their skin type or their concerns. And so we're always constantly needing creators. But Cohley makes it really easy, I think, because we are able to seed a brief out to, say, 30 creators. And if I get 10 back that work for paid advertising, that's better than the 0 that I had before, right? And it's easier to do that than to run in-house production every week trying to generate more content. So I'm so thankful for the creator economy. Definitely a godsend for me. But yeah, we're constantly trying to make sure that people that are on platform look like the people that are in our ads.
So you just touched on something, and I'm really glad that you did. So we have this conversation constantly with our brands on Cohley. Who are the right creators? How do we find the right creators? And something that you said that I really appreciate is like, okay, maybe we work with 30 and 10 are really good fits, or 10 are giving us the right content. So like from a paid perspective, how do you think about who the right creators are? And do you think that's different than like your brand team might think about it?
My brand team would be like, no. I do think that they're different than the brand team for certain, because, when you're working with brand, especially beauty brands, you have kind of like a strict subset of this is how our aesthetic looks, this is what we're looking for, this is the type of person, and you're often working with models and things like that. That's not who's buying your product, right? Models are getting the product. I need to generate creative that reflects the type of people that are buying it. And it differs at different stages of the funnel, which is something that we've talked about a little bit. But top of funnel, I'm probably going a lot broader with the type of creator. I'm doing different age ranges, different skin types, different life stages, right? I'm looking at moms, busy moms. I'm looking at the college student, why she might use the product. I'm looking for those 50 plus women. Are they menopausal? Are they, do they have grandkids? Mature skin. Like, what are all of their life concerns? And so I'm kind of going really, really broad at the top of the funnel. And as we see what works, I'm then narrowing it down, which happens to be a lot of our mature skin and a lot of our busy moms, right? And so then I'm looking at, okay, who from the top of the funnel converted the best? How do I then get more people like that person? And then how do I increase the amount of skin types that are that person? How do I increase the skin problems that are that person? And then as we get even lower funnel, I'm just kind of running our general winners over and over again, but like in different fonts.
So that's interesting. So for those of you guys who don't know, like Jones, like when I first learned about the brand, I was seeing a lot of founder content. And for those who don't know, Jones Road Beauty has a very famous founder, like in the makeup beauty space. So it makes total sense that as you're introducing the brand, I think you guys are like, what, 2020?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, it makes total sense that like, you know, you want to have that face. But like, how have you guys handled that? And now I see creator content. I barely see any of the founder content anymore. Again, maybe that's just my algorithm, but that's just what I'm seeing. So talk me through, as a brand, how did you manage that transition between a celebrity / founder to something more relatable?
Definitely. So Jones Road Beauty was founded by Bobbi Brown, and she is, like you mentioned, OG,
yes.
makeup artist, no makeup connoisseur, like, and she has a cult following from that time period where she was really, really like doing all the models' makeup and creating the line Bobbi Brown and all that stuff. So those people are generally very interested in her content and will engage with the founder content. But for the people that don't know about Bobbi Brown, or maybe didn't grow up on her, maybe they know it, maybe they're thinking it's new edition Bobbi Brown, like whatever, I'm trying to engage them. And so I need to get people, again, I'm going to say it so many times, people that look like them, right? They're not as interested in Bobbi telling them makeup secrets. They're interested in somebody that looks like them telling them makeup secrets. And so I'm always going to launch Bobbi content. Anytime she'll pick up the phone and record with me, I'm going to launch Bobbi content. But that is for a different demographic, and as we try to make sure that people, not only 45 plus, but also people 25 plus, know that the product is for them, we've had to steer away from her, but steer towards people that have a similar ethos level for the demographic that we're looking at, which for 25 plus, the ethos doesn't necessarily come from an industry titan. It comes from a 21-year-old doing her makeup in her bedroom, because Gen Z is setting the trends for the millennials and for Gen X. And so we're trying to get those people.
It is true. I did have a middle part for a while.
Right, until they shamed you out of it.
Exactly.
Skinny jeans, all of those things.
You can't be done. So we do look to the youngs to teach us how to stay cool. Yeah.
And they're good at making content.
They really are.
So
yeah, so let's dig into that a little bit. So that is like trying to find a new audience, which I think is something that we don't often. Sometimes, like, I think we think about paid and it's just like, okay, like, how do we reach our people? How do we get it out there? But like, it does give you an opportunity to discover a new audience. Were you surprised, or as you're kind of digging into that, like, how are you using content to kind of like be the canary in the coal mine there? And then, like, have you seen any surprises as you've been doing that?
Oh, good questions. Definitely using content to do that. I think that Philip mentioned it a bit earlier. Creative is driving, like that's the strategy. That's one of the big levers that you can pull. One of the really interesting things that we've seen is also being able to leverage those influencer partnerships or the whitelisting partnerships, because it's a really cool thing that Meta does is it takes their following and helps distribute your content to people like their followers. So if you get the right partnership and you are whitelisting with the right person for your brand or for people you think will buy from your brand, then you're going to get it seeded out to even more people, which is one of the hardest things post iOS 14 to do, is to get it to the right people, right? Because we don't have the data that we used to have as quickly. So we're trying to constantly create very specific content, get it to a very specific person. And when you're able to whitelist through somebody's account, big or small, right? Creator, large or small, we're getting some of their data and we're able to shoot our message out to people like them.
That makes so much sense. And we were talking at the creator panel earlier about like how important, I think like whitelisting or branded partnership, and TikTok is called Spark Ads, like how much I think that has boosted the creator economy and has really boosted that relationship between brands and creators, because it is so beneficial to both. Totally. So I love that that has been something that's helped you guys find new audiences and like connect to them in that way. Do you guys do much on TikTok?
Oh my gosh. No. And I was taking a lot of notes in the last session because
that's so interesting. It's not a platform you guys play on?
It's not yet. I am very passionate about us getting there, coming from Tube Science, having worked on TikTok so much, but I think it's another side effect of the fact that we are trying to push into a bit of a younger audience, right? So we're deciding what they're going to convert on Meta, on YouTube, on Pinterest, and then moving into TikTok, where we do see where we have run things and that still go to that kind of age range, where we're seeing more scale on other platforms at the moment. But it's something that we're really, really, optimistic about, right? It's a huge platform. There's a lot of people on it.
Yeah, and that is really interesting because I feel like, again, like there's this idea of like, I have to just throw content out there. I have to just throw content out there. So I think it's really interesting where it's like, you know what, let's like perfect where we're getting results and then be able to kind of push it out. When you're making ads for Instagram, do you think about, so, you know, Jen kind of spoke about, and specifically for TikTok, but like I wonder if this holds true for any platform. Like, how do you think about structuring your ads? Are you thinking about hooks? Are you thinking about CTAs? Yeah, talk me through that.
Oh my gosh, always. I think that I use the word hook. If you could like search my Slack, email, just Asana history, I probably use the word hook like 50 times a minute. It's because it's the biggest lever that I can pull, especially with creator content. I don't like to be prescriptive with creators. I will generally give them a subset of questions that I am interested in them answering to the best of their ability in their most authentic voice. And they should theoretically guide them to the hooks that I'm looking for. But if not, I'm just running that text over the ad. And so I'm constantly thinking, okay, how can I make what they said fit what our audience has been converting on the most? And how do I get them to potentially say it, but I want it to come from their authentic voice?
Yeah. What is your most popular hook right now, if you can share?
If you hate wearing foundation, do
the
this
negative,
instead.
The sort of negative.
Yeah, but also, who doesn't hate wearing foundation?
No, it's literally the worst.
Like, right?
It's literally
There's a lot
the worst.
of trauma around foundation.
I don't disagree. I have pictures of me from 2004 with just like a very distinctly different color neck.
Oh my gosh,
so
no,
yeah,
same.
we've all been traumatized.
Like mine have been like, I look casket sharp. Like I look like I was in Twilight. That's my foundation trauma.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that we could trauma jump here. This is a safe space.
We're friends, right?
We're all friends
It's
here.
the end of the day. We're about to get to happy hour.
That's too funny. And so thinking again of like those like hooks, are you just like, so you're not telling the creators what to post, you're kind of letting them do it. What other pieces of advice do you have for brands who are just trying to generate content for paid? Like, how are you briefing? How are you working with the creators? Yeah. I think something that you've done really well on Cohley is that you really do just let the creators run. And I'm sure brand marketers are out here being like, no, but like, I don't know. How has that worked for you?
Yeah, I put together a pretty like meticulous brief for the creators where I will describe what the product is, why we love it, why we believe in it, but like from not in a very dense way. Like because I'm not gonna read it. Like I wouldn't read it if it was super text
I think
heavy.
that's so. I mean, in the video, like people don't read, creators don't read.
Creators don't want to read.
Yeah, that is like my biggest piece of advice. They're visual people.
They're so that's what that's one of the big things is I'm trying to keep the creators from having to read for forever because I want you to do visual storytelling. I don't want you to be bogged down with that. So the big things that I try to hit on are why we love the product, why you might use it, and then visual examples of content that we love, and really important, visual examples of content that we don't love. Lighting that we don't love.
So glad you said that, because in Cohley's platform, we have a section where you can add examples, and you have to choose content we want or content we don't want. And I think brands oftentimes will kind of sleep on the content we don't want section. And I actually think that is probably the most powerful thing that you can do to show creators, like, we don't like this, like, don't do it this way. And I'm so glad that you said that. Sorry.
Yeah, that's a huge part. And also, if you don't want a certain lighting, or you can't have, from the brand perspective, my brand team is really specific about, how creator hair, nails, etc. look. And that's just something that I need to put in the brief, because then when I get the footage back, typically there's nothing that they'll come back to me and say, hey, this isn't on brand about. And that's the only piece that they care about. And I care about the creators just showing up authentically and not being tired after having read my brief.
We call them at Cohley the hostage videos, where the creator is just on the screen and you can tell that they're reading a script and they're like, I am safe. Like, please send help. It is November 12th and I haven't eaten in 3 days. Like, it's just like, you could just tell that they're just like reading off a script, and that content never performs, never works. And, it's a bad experience for the creators.
Right.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I really have found success with is I will give them concepts of here are, for X product, here are 5 scenarios that I think would make sense for the ads that we're running based on the data that we've been given back. And pick a concept. Pick the concept that speaks the most genuinely to your authentic experience, and then run with it. Make whatever content you would make. And at the end of the day, I just need to make sure you answer these 4 questions at the bottom. If you get that, we're gonna have the content that we need. And even if maybe they're not a great speaking talent, or maybe they're not as great at applying makeup, but they've got little pieces that I can use throughout ads. And that's really what it's about, is showcasing that a lot of people can use your product.
Right, and I think you guys do a really great job of using the platform and getting a lot of what we would call like B-roll. And that's just like a lot of content where the creator, maybe it's like a 8-minute video, but the creator is giving you multiple takes, or the creator is kind of like doing the whole video and kind of like, okay, coming back, right? And I think like for a brand, it's like being able to splice that up.
Yeah.
And how do you put that in with different creators? Do you do like compilations? Like, how do you think about that?
All of that. And I think that's what makes it potentially easy to work with us as a creator too, is that I don't need you to edit any of the footage. We have enough people that can splice it together. Just upload your raw assets. So again, I'm trying to just keep creators from being tired. I get it. It's hard to set up a camera and get in the right lighting and take time and make sure that you're getting through a brief. And I really appreciate every creator that we work with. So you don't have to edit it. Just upload everything. Every single raw asset, I will take it and I'll put it together and make sure that it's strategically aligned.
And we heard a lot today about like organization of content. This is like a little, not as fun, maybe a little dull, but like, I think it's important, right? Like, how do you think of, I think on, your briefs in Cohley, you're probably getting like, yeah, exactly, like a lot of videos. How do you think about like you're downloading that? How are you organizing it? How are you getting it to your team?
Yeah, typically I will work with like somebody on the team, and they will go through, once they've reviewed it, made sure that it's like brand aligned, they'll go through search by the creator's name and kind of just download the assets and get them into our asset management system. That's typically how I like that you can zip all of the files from one brief and then put it, like it'll download that zip file, but then it'll separate it by creator. So that's really been helpful when we have a ton of stuff at a time. But yeah, it is a lot of content, which I'm thankful for, but blessing and curse.
I know, exactly. Okay, and then like all of our, I work in tech, so I do have to ask about AI. Yeah, how are you using it? How are you thinking about it?
Oh, I use it similar to the amount of times I probably use Hook in a day, because especially like, okay, for something like the brief, where I sat down one day, I probably spent 3 hours creating like a very meticulous brief for one of our product launches. And now what I do is I throw that brief into AI and I throw in what I know about the next product specific. And I'm like, here are the concepts I want to run. Can you help me generate a brief for this that has similar
Themes, structure.
themes, exactly. But it's not me rewriting the brief 50 times, right? Because I already spent a ton of time doing that. I also will use it for variations. So once I've decided, hey, these are the hooks that I want to run, or these are the concepts that I want to run, what are some other things like that? What are some other ways that we could speak to this strategy? What are some ways that I could speak to this strategy from the perspective of a busy mom or from the perspective of a postpartum mom? So I'm always using it for variations because I'm coming up with the copy, but I'm just Maya. I've only got Maya's lived experience.
Right.
And as grand as I think that may be sometimes, I believe that there are other ideas that could work better, and that's the beauty of being able to test in social and paid social, is that you can run so many variations of something. So I'm always trying to like maximize the number of variations I can run.
Right, and you get the data back. Like I think that
data back.
I would say like we talk to brand teams, not brand teams, paid teams a lot, and they will ask us like, how do we get approval from brand, or like I'm getting stuck by brand, and I'm like, well, you have conversion numbers. Mm-hmm. You can say like, hey, this is converting. So we can have beautiful on-brand content, but if it's not converting, like it's a tough, you got to balance both of those things.
Absolutely.
Amazing. Is there anything else that feels front of mind to you? I know, Jones Road has grown, had a incredible growth trajectory since 2020, and the paid strategy is obviously a huge part of that, but as you're looking down the barrel of like Q3, Q4 2026, like what are you thinking about, and what are some things that are front of mind?
Yeah, well, front of mind for me is always how to meet the consumer where they're at in their journey while they're scrolling through social media. And I think right now where a lot of people are is worried about our economy, worried about the T word, worried about they're not as incentivized to buy as they might have been 2, 3, 4 years ago.
Or even 2, 3, 4 months ago.
So true.
Yeah, it's wild.
So I have been thinking about one thing that I think that is at the forefront of my mind when trying to talk to people about why they should buy a product is helping them understand that not only is this a good fit for your need, it's like the best fit for your need. Here's the education as to why. And also here's why you'd want to buy into a brand like this, right? I think that people need to know more than just that the product would work for them. They need to know that like you're kind of a good person. The creator is somebody that is like you, not only because they look like you, but because they have lived experiences like you. So I'm looking at those things too. I love when moms submit content and their kids are running around in the background. That's so relatable, right? Or like the girlies that will film from the car, but they also really did just leave yoga.
Car content really works. I don't know what it is, but car content works.
Exactly. And it's also giving them the option. I'm like, if you want to film on the go, you can do it wherever you want. Train, airplane. Somebody filmed for me on a city bike. I did not ask for that. And it was so cute. Go for it. That sounds amazing. And it's just so real, especially for us like here, right?
Yes.
So I'm very passionate about making sure that everybody that I work with on Cohley knows that I know that they're a real person and that they can imbue that in their content.
I love that so much. And I think, in any uncertain time, right? Like, regardless of the reason of the uncertainty, like think about what people want, right? People want to be educated. People don't want to feel sold to. I think something that we're recommending to a lot of brands right now is like, take a step back and go back and look what worked for you during like early COVID days when, people were uncertain. No one knew what was happening and people wanted to still make purchases, still, no one wanted to pause their lives, but why should you buy your product over another one, right? Like, we work with a cast iron pan company, and something that they're really focused on is our products last 50 years, right? So if you spend this $60, you're gonna have this product for 50 years. And yeah, maybe it's a little more expensive, but you're gonna have it forever. And so And, maybe this foundation is a little bit more expensive, but it lasts longer. The coverage is better. It's worth it for that. And so it's less about, it's going to be more about like reminding consumers why your product is the best of what they need and that it's going to last and that it is worth the spend. And so whether your product costs $5 or $500, that is going to be incredibly prevalent, and that's just something that I think is really important to remember.
I agree.
Cool. Do we want to open up to questions, or do people just want to start drinking? It's really really up to you. I've gotten the sort of interesting speaking times before lunch and before drinks, and people are like,
You're doing
wrap it up,
great.
we gotta
That was
go.
beautiful.
So, but if there's questions, we're happy to take them.
On. Am I on? There we go.
I'm just curious from the brand perspective of working with influencers compared to creators. Are you seeing, I just want to hear kind of like your thoughts on the quality that comes and if it's comparable, if you think that they are, equally as important. And then also if you, let's start there, maybe.
I love that question.
I think.
Yeah, absolutely equally as important. And surprising to most, I would say that the quality is very comparable. The situation is that somebody has found their niche and somebody else might not have found their niche. And that is, where we're at kind of as a society in the creator economy. What I will say with working with influencers versus creators, with creators I am usually able to like give them that full brief and say, hey, these are the things that I want. Working with the influencers and like doing a lot of the whitelisting partnership, I usually am repurposing things that they've already created, but I'm still saying send me the raw assets, no stickers, no nothing like that, because I still need to like work in some creative strategy into that. But I think that the quality of the content can be quite comparable. You have some really good things and you have some kind of like poor quality assets.
Yeah, and the way that we think about it at Cohley is we don't differentiate between creators and influencers, right? Like it's people who make consumer-driven content. But the way that you might choose, to us, you really want to think about what the end game for that content is. So if you're interested in brand awareness, if you're interested in getting that word out there, we might say work with an influencer. And what you're really paying that influencer for is not necessarily the content, you're renting their audience. Right? And so you can't be as prescriptive. They know what works for their audience, and so you've got to give them that freedom to let them do that. Whereas if it's just content for paid ads and there's not a post attached to that, what you're paying for is the content. And they're a little less precious about, maybe they're going to make that content differently because it doesn't have to get posted on my page. I don't have to think about how it looks in my grid. I don't have to think about I posted something like this last week. Is the engagement going to be lower? So for a brand who does paid, unless they are looking for that whitelisting piece, I would almost always recommend on Cohley, the way you would do that, it's a visual UGC brief versus an influencer brief, because I do think that there's different purposes for each. But then we've also had brands who have gotten really amazing content from a visual asset brief and said to the creator, like, hey, will you post this so I can whitelist it? Like, I'll give you an extra, XYZ payment.
Often. I'm like, oh, can we just run this through your page?
Right. And then that is the best of both worlds. But I do think brands have... I do get very defensive of our creators when brands are asking for something that goes on their feed that goes against what that creator's feed is. You're hiring them for their audience, the authenticity, that connection. And so forgetting about that is going to be bad for the creator and bad for you. So those are the things that you want to think about there.
Thanks.
Good question.
Great question. Do we have any other ones? Cool. All right.
Wow,
Good
look
luck
at
for
us
the ladies on the
go.
stage.
Thanks, guys. This was so fun.
Thanks, y'all.